Genesis 25 1-4, Abraham again took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bore him Zimron, Jokshan, Madon, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan begot Sheba and Dedan. And the sons of Dedan were Ashurim, Letushim, and Laamim. And the sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldaah. All these were the children of Keturah.
After Sarah's death, Abraham takes another wife named Keturah, who bears him 6 sons. These sons, along with their respective offspring, form the lineages of various tribes. This extended family of Abraham contributes to the fulfillment of God's promise that he would become a father of many nations.
Genesis 25 5-6, and Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac. But Abraham gave gifts to the sons of the concubines which Abraham had, and while he was still living he sent them eastward, away from Isaac his son, to the country of the east.
Here, we see how Abraham manages his estate. Isaac, the son of the promise, inherits all that Abraham has. However, Abraham does not neglect his other sons, he gives them gifts and sends them eastward. This action prevents any potential conflict over the inheritance and allows Isaac to fully step into his role as Abraham's heir and successor. As you reflect on these passages, consider the ways in which God's promises continue to unfold in the lives of Abraham and Isaac. Even in the details of family and inheritance, we can see the guiding hand of divine providence.
Genesis 25 7-11, this is the sum of the years of Abraham's life which he lived, 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. And his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the field of Ephron the son of Zohar the Hittite, the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth. There Abraham was buried, and Sarah his wife. And it came to pass, after the death of Abraham, that God blessed his son Isaac. And Isaac dwelt at Beer Lahai Roi.
Abraham's life reaches its conclusion after 175 years. He dies a good old age, an expression signifying not only his longevity but the fulfillment and richness of his life. Abraham's burial brings together his sons Isaac and Ishmael, suggesting a moment of family unity even in their grief. Abraham's resting place is the field he bought from the Hittites, the same place where Sarah was buried. After Abraham's death, the divine blessing passes to Isaac, who continues to live at Beer Lahai Roi.
Genesis 25 12-16, now this is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's maidservant, bore to Abraham. And these were the names of the sons of Ishmael, by their names, according to their generations, the firstborn of Ishmael, Nebaioth, then Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Dumah, Massa, Hadad, Tamah, Jetur, Nephish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael and these were their names, by their towns and their settlements, 12 princes according to their nations.
The narrative then turns to the descendants of Ishmael. Like Isaac, Ishmael also becomes the father of 12 sons, each of whom is the head of his own tribe or nation. This passage reaffirms the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham that Ishmael, too, would father a great nation. As you consider these passages, reflect on the remarkable journey of Abraham, a journey marked by faith, promise, and the continual unfolding of God's plan. Also, note how the blessing of God extends to both Isaac and Ishmael, revealing a God who is faithful to his promises.
Genesis 25 17-18, these were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people. They dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt as you go toward Assyria. He died in the presence of all his brethren.
Ishmael, too, lived a long and full life. He died at the age of 137. The territory of his descendants stretched from Havilah to Shur, indicating a wide and far-reaching influence. The text suggests that he died peacefully, in the presence of all his brethren, signifying a sense of family and community.
Genesis 25 19-23, this is the genealogy of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban the Syrian. Now Isaac pleaded with the Lord for his wife, because she was barren, and the Lord granted his plea, and Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If all is well, why am I like this?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, two people shall be separated from your body, one people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger."
Here, the narrative shifts back to Isaac, highlighting the continuity of God's promise through Abraham's lineage. Isaac, like his father, prays for his barren wife, and God responds by blessing Rebekah with conception. However, the pregnancy is difficult due to the struggle between the twins in her womb. Rebekah's prayer for understanding is met with a prophetic response from the Lord. The twins will become two nations, with the older serving the younger, a prophecy that will dramatically shape the lives of these two boys and their descendants. Consider these verses as a reflection on God's faithfulness to his promises. Despite challenges and difficulties, God's word comes to pass, even when it defies societal norms and expectations, like the older serving the younger.
Genesis 25:24-28. So when her days were fulfilled for her to give birth, indeed there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over, so they called his name Esau. Afterward his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. The boys grew. And Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man, dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob.
When the twins are born, they are as different as can be. Esau, the elder, is born covered with red hair, a physical trait that sets him apart. He grows up to be a skillful hunter, a man of the field. His father, Isaac, loves him, perhaps not just for his wild game but also for his robust, outdoorsy nature that Isaac himself, as a farmer, can relate to. Jacob, on the other hand, is born holding onto Esau's heel, an act that perhaps foreshadows the future contentious relationship between the brothers. He grows up to be a mild man, preferring to stay close to home. His mother, Rebekah, loves him. The reasons aren't explicitly mentioned here, but it's possible that she felt closer to Jacob, who spent more time at home and was perhaps more contemplative and domestic. These verses set the stage for the rivalry between Esau and Jacob that will shape much of the Genesis narrative. Note how their parents' favoritism could potentially contribute to the tension between the brothers. As you reflect on these passages, think about the human dynamics at play in this divine narrative.
Genesis 25:29-34. Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary." Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I am about to die, so what is this birthright to me?" Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him, and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils, then he ate and drank, arose, and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright.
In this significant episode, we see the stark contrast between the two brothers. Esau, coming in from the field, is famished and desperate. In his hunger, he demands some of the red stew that Jacob has made. Jacob, ever the opportunist, seizes the moment to bargain for Esau's birthright, the special privileges and responsibilities of the firstborn son, including a double portion of the inheritance. Esau, in his exhaustion and short-sightedness, agrees. His dismissive attitude towards his birthright underscores his character, a man driven by immediate needs and desires, with little regard for long-term consequences. This exchange, then, serves not only to advance Jacob's status but also to justify it by portraying Esau as unfit for the role of the firstborn son. As we reflect on this narrative, we can ponder upon the values and attitudes presented. Jacob's cunning and ambition contrast sharply with Esau's impulsiveness and disregard for his birthright. This account, like many in the Bible, invites us to reflect upon the consequences of our choices, the things we value, and the impact of our actions on our future.
Genesis 26:1-5. There was a famine in the land, apart from the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech king of the Philistines, in Gerar. Then the Lord appeared to him and said, Do not go down to Egypt, live in the land of which I shall tell you. Dwell in this land, and I will be with you and bless you, for to you and your descendants I give all these lands, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. And I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of heaven. I will give to your descendants all these lands, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws.
The narrative now shifts back to Isaac. There is a famine in the land, not unlike the one Abraham faced. Isaac considers going to Egypt, but the Lord intervenes and directs him to stay in the land of the Philistines. God reaffirms the promises made to Abraham, of blessing, land, and descendants, now to Isaac, underscoring the continuity of his covenant promises. Isaac's obedience, like that of his father, is vital for these promises to be fulfilled.
Genesis 26:6-11, So Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And the men of the place asked about his wife. And he said, She is my sister, for he was afraid to say, She is my wife, because he thought, lest the men of the place kill me for Rebekah, because she is beautiful to behold. When he had been there a long time, Abimelech king of the Philistines looked through a window, and saw, and there was Isaac, showing endearment to Rebekah his wife. Then Abimelech called Isaac and said, Quite obviously she is your wife, so how could you say, She is my sister? Isaac said to him, Because I said, Lest I die on account of her. And Abimelech said, What is this you have done to us? One of the people might soon have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt on us. So Abimelech charged all his people, saying, He who touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death.
Here, we see Isaac repeating the same mistake Abraham made with Sarah. He lies about his relationship with Rebekah out of fear for his life. When his lie is discovered, it brings potential guilt and harm to Abimelech and his people. Yet, the king, recognizing the dangerous position Isaac has put them in, protects him and Rebekah by decreeing that anyone who harms them will be put to death. Reflect on the implications of these passages. Despite Isaac's lapse in judgment and honesty, God's promises remain. However, Isaac's actions almost jeopardize the very promises God gave him. Think about how fear can lead us to make decisions that could potentially harm others and ourselves, and how honesty and trust in God's provision can save us from such predicaments.
Genesis 26:12-17, Then Isaac sowed in that land, and reaped in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. The man began to prosper, and continued prospering until he became very prosperous, for he had possessions of flocks and herds, and a great number of servants. So the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and they filled them with earth. And Abimelech said to Isaac, Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we. Then Isaac departed from there and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar, and dwelt there.
In this passage, we see Isaac's prosperity in the land of the Philistines. Despite the famine, he plants crops and reaps a bountiful harvest, a clear sign of God's blessing. His prosperity continues to grow, causing the Philistines to envy him. The envy of the Philistines leads them to stop up the wells that were originally dug by Abraham's servants, indicating their desire to limit Isaac's influence and prosperity. In response to this growing tension and hostility, Abimelech requests Isaac to leave their land. Isaac, choosing peace over conflict, complies and moves his household to the valley of Gerar.
Genesis 26:18-22, And Isaac dug again the wells of water which they had dug in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. He called them by the names which his father had called them. Also Isaac's servants dug in the valley, and found a well of running water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, The water is ours. So he called the name of the well Esek, because they quarreled with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that one also. So he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, because he said, For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land.
As Isaac settles in the valley of Gerar, he redigs the wells that his father Abraham had dug and that the Philistines had filled in. This act can be seen as a restoration of his father's legacy and a testament to his perseverance. Yet, Isaac faces further contention from the herdsmen of Gerar over these new wells. Despite the disputes, Isaac persists, moving from place to place until he finds a well over which there is no quarrel. He names it Rehoboth, meaning broad places or room, expressing his faith and gratitude to God for providing for him. In reflecting on these passages, we can observe Isaac's resilience, patience, and commitment to peace. Despite the opposition he faced, Isaac remained steadfast and kept his faith in God's promise. Consider how these qualities are demonstrated in your own life and how they might guide you in times of conflict or opposition.
Genesis 26:23-29. Then he went up from there to Beersheba. And the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, I am the God of your father Abraham, do not fear, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your descendants for my servant Abraham's sake. So he built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants dug a well. Then Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahuzzath, one of his friends, and Phicol the commander of his army. And Isaac said to them, Why have you come to me, since you hate me and have sent me away from you? But they said, We have certainly seen that the Lord is with you. So we said, Let there now be an oath between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, since we have not touched you, and since we have done nothing to you but good and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord.
Upon moving to Beersheba, Isaac receives a divine visitation and reassurance from God. He is told not to fear, as God will bless him and multiply his descendants for the sake of Abraham. Isaac responds by building an altar and calling upon the name of the Lord, an act of worship and dedication. Interestingly, Abimelech, along with his advisors, travels to Beersheba to meet Isaac. Despite their earlier hostilities, they recognize that God's blessing is upon Isaac and seek a covenant of peace with him. This encounter highlights the undeniable evidence of God's favor upon Isaac's life, causing even his rivals to seek peace and reconciliation.
Genesis 26:30-33. So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. Then they arose early in the morning and swore an oath with each other, and Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. It came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him about the well which they had dug, and said to him, We have found water. So he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day.
In response to their request, Isaac hosts a feast, after which they swear a mutual oath of peace. After this reconciliation, Isaac's servants find water in the well they were digging, further signifying God's blessing. Isaac names the well Sheba, meaning oath or seven, which gives Beersheba its name, meaning well of the oath or well of seven. As we reflect on these passages, consider the themes of reconciliation and God's providential care. Even in the face of opposition, Isaac remains faithful, and his patience is rewarded with peace and divine favor. In our lives, too, we may find that persistence in faith and goodwill can lead to unexpected blessings and resolutions.
Genesis 26:34-35. When Esau was 40 years old, he took as wives Judith the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Basemath the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah.
In these verses, we learn that Esau, Isaac's firstborn, married two Hittite women. These marriages were a source of sorrow to his parents, Isaac and Rebekah. The Hittites were a pagan nation, and marrying outside of the covenant people was often associated with being led away from God, which might explain Isaac and Rebekah's disappointment and worry.